All right. Hey, peace and prosperity. Yo, tonight is a team effort. On the bottom, on the foundation, is the good brother, the chakra doctor. How you doing, bro?
How y'all doing? What's going on, everybody? Peace. Peace.
Peace. And this brother, Minister Zumbi, we're calling him Minister Hum right now. He's doing all
my $20 revolutionary.
Indeed.
And we want you to get on code. So hey, we also want you to be reminded that the Get On Code show can be found wherever you find podcasts. So here's a snapshot from Apple Podcasts. So wherever you find your podcast, you can find the Get On Code show.
Yeah. Well, when you look at it, first and foremost, you see once again how all of this stuff is stolen from Black folk, namely that place in Africa we call Kemet.
Right.
And the first thing you see in Allah's main attributes are the Ra references, the Rahman, the Rahim, and the Ramadan. And so when you look at Ramadan and how it coincides with Passover and Easter, what is Easter? Easter is the celebration of formerly everybody believes it's the celebration of the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And when you get deeper into the story, you'll find that Easter is an approximation of the spring equinox. Easter celebrates the crossing of the celestial equator by the sun. Easter, a roving date, is the first Sunday after the first full moon after the spring equinox, March 21st. All right? Therefore, it cannot be the date of the death of any historical personage. The crucifixion or crossing was and still is determined by the full moon of the Easter month. And so, once again, we just see that old ancient religion of Kemet and the Black people we like to call, the Egyptians. They were never called Egyptians, but for politically correctness, we're going to call them Egyptians. And just another big sign that culture and that place and that land has been raped of more knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, and plagiarized into what we call now and today Christian or Christian celebration. And, it's just amazing how, we can keep doing these things and not at least wake up to the fact that, hey, wait a minute, man, this comes from something deeper. This comes from a place of something a little bit more deeper, and it has a little bit more sinister meaning behind it when you're practicing it and not knowing it. I can probably say Happy Easter because I know what's going on, but it's amazing. Sorry, man, but yeah.
All right, hey, I didn't expect you to go there. That was nice. That was nice. So connecting Ramadan with Ra, or Amen Ra, the Kemetic or Egyptian, if you will, deity who said that he is so powerful that his name will end all prayers. And so when our Hebrews or our Haribu brothers and sisters cross the waters, Haribu means, or Hebrew means those who cross the waters. They started using the term Amen or Amen. And Islam, they say Amun or Amen.
Yep, Amen. Yep, Islam say Amen. Right. Christians say right. Amen. When you go to Hindu, the Hindus say Aman. Everywhere there's a version of it, and they have to keep that in it in order for it to have its magical power. If you remove Amen and Ra and certain Egyptian staples from these plagiarized text versions of them, they would completely lose their power, and people would not be entranced by the story as they normally would. But the fact that you're using hundreds of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands year old ancient wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, and what one might call metaphysical science, people are mystified, like, whoa, wow, this is so profound. It speaks to my DNA, it speaks to my spirit, it speaks to my soul, because it's the story of your DNA, the story of your spirit, the story of your soul. You know, a lot of people don't know that the reason why they call Jesus the Son of God, because it actually represents the actual sun in the sky. And the reason why they refer to God as one of the nicknames of Most High, because the sun is the most highest object in the sky. Once again, you know, when you look at the society and see how much of the society is ingrained with the R. Remember, the R is the R complex of the brain, once again, representing the eye of Ra. All right. And you look at it, I think what R is the most used, the used consonant in the English language. The R, you know, when you go on Wheel of Fortune, not Wheel of Fortune, yeah, Wheel of Fortune, RSTLNE, right? In that order. And so when you look at that, the R represents our pineal gland inside of our brain. This is why, and we know that the CERN machine is doing experiments trying to manipulate that right now, because there's something inside of our pineal gland called the Higgs boson, or the God particle. Okay, and they've been trying to manipulate this for a long time and extract this and do all kinds of things. You see it on Blade. They're always trying to on the Blade movies. They're always trying to extract his DNA. They're always trying to take his blood and analyze how can we become daywalkers like you, right? And so there's this big old thing of our heritage of this big power of what one might call, you know, metaphysical science, magic, sorcery, religion, spirituality, the invisible, hocus pocus, whatever you like to call it. There is something going on where our everyday rituals, everyday traditions, and our everyday celebrations always coincide with these particular celestial movements and celestial bodies that our ancestors used to do. So our ancestors used to do this, and it's like, hey man, can't shake an old time religion, baby.
Interesting. So Chakra just took us in a totally different direction. I love it, brother. Keep dropping those gems. I'm glad you talked about that's where the magic is. As I said, that's been my message, but today I got this from Brother Bedford. All right. Good Sunday morning. Today, millions of people will be celebrating the resurrection of Jesus. I'm not here to argue the validity of the day or even discuss the goddess Estra from where the name Easter finds its roots. Nope. I stopped by today, church, to talk about resurrection, your resurrection. I'm talking about unearthing and resurrecting your gifts and your genius. They've been buried too long. So much misery and sorrow is attached to the fact that we are not living the lives that your creator wanted you to live. It's hard getting around the fact that for over 450 years here in the United States of America, a lot has been done to bury our God-given talents, gifts, strengths, and genius. Unfortunately, many of us will go through the next 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years without even attempting to resurrect what has been buried. We'll just move on for this grave of existence into the physical grave. Again, I just dropped by today, church, to say you don't have to. You can remove the boulder that's preventing you from coming forth and sharing your gifts and genius with the world. You too can ascend to the heights of greatness. The choice is yours.
Amen.
You can remain buried in a shallow grave, or you can rise up and accomplish what you will. Happy Resurrection Day. And see, I see the cross in my metaphysical studies, in my historical studies, in my cultural studies. The cross, the connecting points, and actually in the ancient times in Christianity, they actually had it more like a T, more so than a cross. They called it the Tau, the T-A-U, the tree, the T-A-U, or the Tau. And then later on, it became known as the cross. But indigenous cultures and in many African cultures, the crossroads is the place where you meet God. The crossroads is that place where you come in contact with the most grand experience of the four elements of the fire, of the water, of the air, of the earth. You come to the crossroads All the resources, all the opportunities are there. And it's at the crossroads, it's at the cross where you meet God, which is opportunity. It is the meeting of God, good, orderly direction, or a deity, God as a deity, either way you want to look at it, where you can change the direction of your life and those lives around you. So you'll find a cross as a symbol in most indigenous, definitely in a lot of African traditional cultures, because there was a symbol of where you come in contact with the Almighty. And so when I look at your cross, your cave, your resurrection, there's something in your life that you need to sacrifice. It might be eating sugar. For Lent this year, Lent 2022, I gave up eating sugary snacks. Lost a few pounds. I'm actually healthier. I feel healthier. I'm sleeping better. I wake up with a lot more energy. Sugar is a demon. you know, Elijah Muhammad, Farrakhan, all of them told him, hey, eat to live. And one of the ways you can eat to live is getting rid of that sugar demon, because if it's white, it ain't right. So anything that's bleached, bleached meat, bleached flour,
Yes.
bleached sugar, anything that goes to that bleaching process where you go from a melanated cane sugar
Right.
to a bleaching process, and now it's pure white. It's not good for you. When you look at flour is normally melanated.
Yes.
But then if you bleach it, it becomes pure white.
Right.
And it's not good for you.
Right.
It wasn't good for you necessarily early, but as it goes to that bleaching process, it ain't right. So when we talk about foods, if it's white, it's not right, because you want things that are colorful. You want foods that have a little pink in them, a little brown in them, a little green in them, a little orange, a little yellow. You need some, when you look at your food on your plate, you want to have flavors and colors on there. That's the way you can tell if it's healthy or not. So, Easter, your cross, you're going to have to sacrifice for something. Sacrifice something if you want to move to the next level. And once you've done the sacrifice, once you've sacrificed, where do you go? Where are you placed?
Yeah. There's a term, I don't know if you've heard the term. It's called breaking the habit of being yourself. And what that means is, like you were talking about, when you reach the crossroads, there's a sacrifice that must take place. Okay. So Les Brown always said, in order to do something you've never done before, you must become someone you've never been before. So who you were before the crossroads must die in order for this new creature to be born. It's just like a caterpillar going into a cocoon. He has to surrender to the process to come out as a butterfly on the other side. If he wants to be this new creature, then whoever he was can no longer exist.
Interesting. It can no longer exist. So,
and you were talking about one of the elements.
I say
the fire element. That is the element to where it burns off all impurities. If you ever watch a Japanese blacksmith when he's making those samurai swords, you'll see him banging on the iron. And then he looks at it, he sticks it in the water, he comes back, and he still sees impurities on it until he gets it right. And then once it is perfect, once all the impurities are off, then you will see him etch the calligraphy on the sword. Okay. So whatever fire touches, it no longer is that. it becomes something else. So the fire is kind of a purification process.
While you were talking, it
Mhm.
dawned on me that we use the term juju, but also you can use the term hoodoo, hoodoo,
Mm,
hoodoo.
mhm.
And in hoodoo, you have this concept of the crossroads. And
Mm,
so the crossroads is a supernatural place between the two worlds.
okay.
Symbolically, it can mean a locality where the two realms touch and therefore represent a place neither here or there. You're betwixt. All right.
Mm,
So when we deal with hoodoo, let's go to ancient religions.
okay.
All right, so in Greek mythology, crossroads were associated with both Heket and Hermes, with shrines and ceremonies taken there. The Herm pillow associated with Hermes marked places due to God's association with travelers and role as a guide. So once again, in ancient Greece,
Mhm.
in their culture, which was Kemetic,
Okay.
they talk about the crossroads being a place where God associates with travelers and acts as a role as a guide.
Mm,
All right. So so you'll find in that the goddess or the god of the crossroads.
okay.
And they talk about there being three crossing roads. So those three crossing roads are straight ahead, to the right, or to the left. You never really talk about going backwards.
Hmm.
All right. All right. So that I always found that interesting. And so see you have here this statue, and you see this statue has a cross.
Right.
That statue has a cross. So
Mhm.
that's ancient, ancient religions. Let's go to hoodoo.
Mm,
And hoodoo is really practiced primarily by those we call African Americans, the Africans in the Americas, the indigenous people, the Africans who were brought here to the United States. And
mm,
it is really based on a Congolese religion. So conjure, root work, hoodoo, juju is really based on the Congo's cosmology. And as
mm.
you see in the Congo's cosmology, you have a cross and you have a circle here. And then you see these circles here as well. So that tells you at this point right here, that's where we meet with the Almighty.
Mm.
The center of the crossroads is where communication takes place with spirits. You meet the spirit world, you meet the ancestry, you meet the angels, if you will. You
Okay.
meet God and God's representatives
Mm.
at the crossroad.
Okay.
All right. And let me go to Brazil because I mentioned Candomblé.
Right.
Right. All right. So
Okay.
once again, it's the place where you make offerings to the Orishas, and the
Yes.
Ori or the Orishas are the representatives of the Almighty that
Mhm.
operate in a certain area. So
Right.
once again, the and so here's in Brazil, there's a character called Papa Legba, and Papa
Yeah.
Legba is associated with Saint Peter. All right,
Hmm. Hmm.
and so I don't want to take all my time up on this going through Wikipedia. Of course, we can't really trust Wikipedia all the time, but I do think that it's interesting that the crossroads in all of these traditions and religious and spiritual understandings is the place where you interact with the Almighty or the Almighty's representatives.
Hmm. And like you said, there's no going backward. You either go left, right, or you go forward. And that's why I was saying with the fire element, it burns all of those impurities off you. So that way, when you come to the other side, you come pure.
Hmm. And that leads us to the next point. What you just described was an initiation process.
Hmm.
You had to sacrifice a whole lot.
Yes.
There was a time period that was a part of your sacrifice.
Hmm.
During this time period of sacrifice, you're learning things about yourself, learning things about others.
Hmm.
Knowledge of self, knowledge of others, knowledge
Yes.
of self and others.
Hmm.
Then you have a night of power where you really tussle and demonstrate your ultimate strength, which was already inside you.
Hmm.
Then you celebrate. You had your probate show. You step.
Oh yeah.
You know, and if you're joining a church, you go through new members class.
Check.
You know, if you're going through the school system, you start off and you go to orientation.
Hmm.
Then you go through the educational process. Then you have convocation.
Hmm.
But that leads us where? That leads us, you go through the cross situation, your
Yes.
challenge. You
Hmm.
go through your transformation home, your womb. And that leads us to the resurrection.
Yes.
And so I like this particular article that Venus, Dr. Venus Opal, Dr. Venus Opal Reese dropped on us today. Here's
Mm.
the blog version of it: Reimagining Resurrection for Black People. All
Mm.
right. And well, you know what? I probably need to do this because we're going to have some people who just don't understand. All right. I got to do this. I got to do this. African Americans is an American citizen of some level, not necessarily entirely of African descent. The term black doesn't refer to skin color, hair texture, origin from a city, state, or country, nation, or planet named black. We're not talking about a crayon color. We're not using the term to address one's legal status or nationality. When we use the term black, we're referring to a person of some level of African and or indigenous or aboriginal descent. All right, had to do that because, well, as you know, we get the pushback. But
Yeah.
a reimagining resurrection for Black people.
Mm.
All right, so this came to me yesterday, and I want to read this for those who are listening on the podcast version. For many of us, Easter is a celebration of the resurrection. For many of us, Easter is the celebration of the resurrection, right?
Mm.
Okay. I'm thinking about applying the word resurrection to Black people. So she says, hear me out. I'm not saying Black people surviving slavery. I'm sorry. I am not saying Black people surviving slavery is the same as Yeshua rising from the dead after 3 days. I am saying, as I sit with God and be with what it would take for us as a people to heal, trust each other, and thrive both emotionally and economically, I see something. In my imagining, Black people have always been treated historically, in many ways, the way Yeshua was treated: accused, betrayed, whipped, murdered, be it physically, mentally, spiritually, or emotionally. We have, as people, known persecution for hundreds of years. Do you ever feel targeted, discredited, crucified? I imagine that's how Jesus may have felt. When the people who sing your praises, Hosanna, one day, and then on the next day, those same people cry, crucify him. It's enough to emphasize with the Christ. So as I sit here emphasizing with Jesus, I think of you. I think of us. I think how I can help. I start to reimagine resurrection as a rebirth of the Black family, or our relationships with Black men as being born again. And just to give a little more context, this is Dr. Venus Opal, who is a woman who helps Black women become multimillionaires. She's done it with numerous people, did it for herself, and she uses your mess, the stuff you went through that were messy in your life. taking your mess and making your mess a mess edge, which is monetized. All right. One of the things that she's really focused on is healing with Black men, because she had a hard time with the relationship she had with her father when she was a child. She went through a lot of abuse. She was sexually abused. She was physically abused. She went through a whole lot. She was married to a woman for a while, and then now she's dating a guy, and they're actually engaged. And she's been on the last 2 years a focus of developing better relationships with Black men. So when she says, or our relationship with Black men is being born again, that's the context that you need to understand Dr. Venus Opal's writings. Or our wealth arising, so Black people are no longer the tail, but the head. My point is this: if Jesus could resurrect himself from the grave, why can't we resurrect ourselves from the wounds of the enslavement process? We are made in the image and likeness of God. God spoke, then there was. We speak. What we speak becomes real. If the power of life and death is in the tongue, and Yeshua gave up his spirit after saying, Father, into your hands I commit my spirit, don't we have that same power? Resurrection power, revival, resuscitation. I reimagine resurrection for us as a people. I draw courage and hope. You are sis. You sis are God wrapped in flesh. You bro are the character of God. Together we can resurrect Black America from the bondage of oppression and systemic racism. If this speaks to you, and this is Dr. Venus Opal talking, I can show you how we can break the yoke of oppression and create our own resurrection, like Common Sense said. Resurrection. Go here for details. Her website that she's pushing now is healedblackmillionaires.com. So you can go check out www.healed, H-E-A-L-E-D, black, B-L-A-C-K, millionaires, I'm not spelling that out, .com. She continues to say, I admire Yeshua, Jesus, because he was a man of his word. He was so radical. He was a radical who gave up his life for what he believed. He fulfilled the law. He fulfilled the word. He fulfilled the law out of love and duty as a son. I learned a lot from his example, especially him laying down his life, calling the shot of rising in 3 days, and fulfilling his purpose. So I'm applying a Jesus resurrection power to our 21st century crucifixion called chattel slavery and colonialism. It's time for us to be like Yeshua was in his day. It's time for us to take up our cross and become our own messiahs. All right, she's now a successful self-made Black woman millionaire who for years, and I've been following Dr. Venus for about 8 years, has enjoyed a thriving business guiding other Black women in healing their money wounds and claiming their financial power. So this is the sister right here.
Okay.
And you can, find her on Facebook, on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube. But I just want to make sure that the code keepers knew exactly where I got that information from. Your resurrection. What are your thoughts on that, brother? Resurrection.
I remember Jesse Jackson saying that, for every crucifixion, there is a resurrection. And I think sometimes we get so stuck in the crucifixion, we don't understand that there's the other side that we must get to.